Recently, we have been given so much information about Borderlands 4. I'm super excited about it. In this video, I want to go over everything we know about Borderlands 4 so far. So to start off, the general gameplay feels very similar to Borderlands 3, but has major improvements, especially to the movement. This is probably the biggest impact to this title and the biggest change overall. Gunplay does feel unchanged from Borderlands 3, and some can argue Borderlands 3 has one of the best gunplays in this series. I mean, it's one of the most recent titles, so that makes sense, and most of this hasn't changed across the board. This is more an evolution for the series rather than an iteration, and it's somewhat an idea of what Borderlands 3 could have been. The biggest changes in systems overall for Borderlands 4 is going to be the movement, like I said previously. With the introduction of double jumping, dashing, grappling, swimming, movement upgrades are now unlocked over time, like glide longer, dash farther. These will eventually be unlocked over time throughout the world, as well as leveling. Movement is integrated into combat and exploration. As we know, this is going to be the biggest world the series has on offer, and the movement is a very good accompany for this world that they're creating. The good thing about the movement, it does feel natural and it fits very well with the playstyle, gunplay, the combat, as well as the world. It's very addictively fluid, and even some bosses and world bosses will require us to use movement abilities during their boss fights. Now, there's going to be like different phases, like we see some bosses go into immunity phases. Some bosses in Borderlands 4 will have a similar mechanic where when we're in the battlefield fighting them, we have to use movement in order to navigate the battlefield, as well as to progress these phases during the fight. Now, the dash system can be toggled off and on to have more of a classic Borderlands feel and experience overall, but no other movement features like double jumping and things like that can be toggled, which I don't think is a big deal. The dashing I do understand, because the dashing is going to be based off of your shift ability. Could accidentally activate dash on accident, so having that switched off, I do understand having that on a toggle. It does seem like a lot of systems in this game are going to be able to be toggled. We're just going to see how much the accessibility is going to come. Now, the world overall in Borderlands 4, it looks absolutely beautiful. Obviously, they're keeping with the tone and style as well as the art direction that we've seen across the board for Borderlands. Now, I gotta say, when I play Borderlands, even if I go back to Borderlands 1, it really holds up to this day so many years later, and that is simply because of the graphical choice that they went for. And Borderlands 4 seems like it's gonna have this vibe, but it just looks way more crisp, clean, and just beautiful overall. Obviously, it is a newer generation title, so that has that backing it, but I just love the worlds of Borderlands and the style of art that they chose for it. The world feels very large and open, with world events that can happen at any time that could veer you off the path. We do know the story is not linear at all, so it's not like we've seen previously in the franchise where you go through the quest line in a linear way. In this one, you can choose what paths you want, what quests you want to do first. Obviously, there's going to be some bulk quests that are going to be your main ones, but a lot of the quests are not linear at all. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and that's what they're stressing with this, is it's one full big open world, and that's the way the systems are going to work, whether it's exploration, general leveling, as well as the quest design. There's also events that can happen, like a ship can blow out of the sky and a supply drop will come down. If you go to that area, you will see and find a wreckage, which then will activate a new quest. But if that ship hasn't fallen yet, that quest is not unlocked. So the world does seem dynamic, and it does seem like it's going to shift and add all these additions to it. We don't necessarily know if the overall world is generally bigger than Borderlands 3, because as we know, Borderlands 3 had so many different regions in it and so many different planets. Now, if you take all those planets and put it up to one, I wouldn't necessarily say that Borderlands 4 may be bigger, but just a completely different feel, so I don't know if we can really compare it. Now, there are some empty spaces in the world, and this is understandable to an extent. It is a massive open world. You can't have something in every nook and cranny. It may have somewhat of a lack of things to see, do, as well as a feel to it, but we're gonna have to see as the game comes out. Now, one of the biggest things, Killer 6 especially, died on Minimap Hill. The compass used instead of the minimap is strongly disliked by the community, as we know. Recently, they have listened to us, which is absolutely insane that Gearbox is fully listening to us and taking our advice this late in development. They actually have introduced a new combat radar, which is a device that you could throw in the air, and it'll put pings on your map in the general area. It'll ping things like loot, enemy, chests, different things like that. The interesting thing would be able to, as we get into late game, be able to toggle certain things that we want to see on that minimap. So maybe we could take off enemies, we could take off low level gear, only put legendaries on this radar. That's going to be interesting to see exactly how that's going to work with gameplay, because it's going to be something that we're going to have to activate constantly as we're in combat or searching and exploring different areas. Now, as we do know, our trusty Echo has been our companion throughout the series, from Echo 1 all the way up to the Echo 3 in Borderlands 3. This time around, it is a new iteration, and I kind of like the way and the route that they're going with this. With the Echo 4 is going to be a small robot companion. Its general role is going to be similar to how Destiny has its ghosts, where you can pop it up, it'll ping areas in your map. You can use it as a GPS system, it'll find things in the environment. It does help with with navigation as well as reviving the player, but currently in the game state, there is no other reason for this. It does seem like its pathfinding is a little glitchy at times and taking you to areas that basically you can't traverse up or dead ends pretty much. But it is an early build of the game that we've seen so far, so we do know this AI system is going to be adjusted over time, as well as once the game fully launches, it's going to be fully fleshed out at that point. Now let's get into combat and bosses. This time around with Borderlands 4, combat's going to be super different than we've ever seen. Bosses are very fun and challenging. Like I said before, some movement tech is going to have to be involved in some of these boss fights, but the way the world works, it's going to be on a tier system of levels. So some regions are going to have higher level enemies, some regions are going to have lower level enemies, and they will scale to you. Now, if you go to these earlier stages later in the game, if you go to the earlier regions, these enemies won't fully scale to you, but the loot and gear that they drop will scale. So for example, if you're level 50 and you go to like the starting area, enemies are only going to be level 40 to 45, so they are going to be easier to kill, but their loot drops are going to be at your current level. Similarly enough, you can go into later regions of the world and enemies are going to be extremely brutal and hard to take on because their levels are going to be a lot higher. Now, we've kind of seen this a little bit in the series, but we haven't seen it this fleshed out to where some places either you could go there to have a challenge and get gear that's going to be boosting you up, gear that's going to be higher than your level, that are going to be higher tier gear that you could eventually use, or you can take them on as a challenge, as something that you want. Prove yourself taking on enemies that are 5, 10, 15, heck, even 20 levels higher than you. So this could be somewhat of a gatekeep system, could prevent us from exploring certain areas, because you might go to an area or want to go to an area and be like, I want to go up there. You realize that the enemies in that area are 15 levels higher than you, and you can't even explore, you can't do the combat because they are too hard to take on. So this could be a win-lose situation. We're going to see how this works out, but I do like the system of finding these world bosses that are a lot higher than you, and I do like that the game is going to be a little bit harder and a little bit more fleshed out in terms of the leveling and the scaling of the world. I will say this is probably the hardest Borderlands we have ever seen. The ones before, they do have a fluidness to them and fluidness to the world, and if you had a decent build, whether you picked up a really good gun early on or you've built yourself up, you were able to go through the world, take on pretty much any content. Sure, some would be harder than others, but that's not how Borderlands 4 is going to work. It's really going to work towards the side of optimizing your build as you're moving along, and if you're not doing that, if you're not switching up your gear, if you're not optimizing your skill trees, you're going to have a hard time on the world bosses, general enemies in the environment, as well as story quest bosses. So scaling is going to be a big part of this, which I think that in turn, this can assist in our farming. It's going to force us to farm lower areas, farm bosses, and farm previous content that we've done before in order to scale ourselves up to be able to take on new content. Now, one of the biggest things in Borderlands is the drops and the drop system. Dedicated drops and farming has come back. Now, there's going to be a little bit of a switch here that is somewhat of a concern. We don't have a full explanation of this, but some bosses don't seem to respawn after mission completion. Now, we do know of Moxie's Arena, which gives us the ability to respawn bosses and enemies at any point once it's unlocked. Now, this may be the solution for this system, but it's not going to be like previous installments where we know a boss or a mini boss is in a specific area. A world boss is in one zone of the map. You save, quit, go back, farm it. Some bosses in specific zones will not respawn. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that's going to work out. Now let's get into upgrading skill trees, the SDU system, as well as characters. The SDU system is going to be completely different than we've seen before. These are going to be upgraded by collecting vault symbols, not money. Now this might be a major problem because if you guys remember Wonderlands had the loot luck dice system, and this system did not carry across the board with alt characters. If you collected it on one and you started a new playthrough, you had to collect it on others. Now I had so many hours into Wonderlands, I played numerous playthroughs on each character. I collected the loot dice on my main and forgot about it for the rest of them because it was a chore overall. SDU system seems like it may be somewhat similar to this, but we're gonna have to see exactly how they retroactively make it work across accounts and how it's gonna work overall. But only way to upgrade SDU systems, we no longer can go to Trusty Marcus and spend our money, which money, as we know, is in abundance in the Borderlands franchise. We're gonna have to find these symbols throughout the world in order to get these upgrades. Now it does add depth and a new reason to explore. I do think it can become tedious on repeat playthroughs with multiple characters, so we're just gonna have to see how that works out. The skill tree system looks insane. It looks like it's gonna be the biggest system we've seen in the franchise. It does look promising and offer a lot of flexibility with builds, so I think the build diversity in Borderlands 4 is gonna be the greatest we've seen. Each skill tree has the most skills within them, so the build diversity overall is gonna be a lot more expansive. And this is gonna be great because as we know with Borderlands 3, 3, a lot of the builds that we do and a lot of the top level builds are few and far between. And sure, you can do your own build, but overall, if you really want grinding, farming, endgame content, the mayhem levels to go a lot faster and be a lot easier for you and be workable, there's only a set amount of builds out there for each character that really work for that content. Now, on the aspect of the writing, the humor, as well as the story overall, Borderlands 4 has diverted completely from what the franchise is used to. Now, I think this is a great thing. I, in particular, am not in favor of the humor that was in the older games. Did not make me laugh. I don't know if that's just me, but it does seem this time around the writing in Borderlands 4 is going to be very, very good. And the humor is going to be a little bit more geared towards a more genuine, funny, and engaging story with a lot more dark humor. We do know there's returning characters, Zane, Amara, Moxie, so on and so forth. They're going to be an introduction to a lot more characters we have not seen before in the franchise. And I think this is where Borderlands is really going to step it up to be somewhat of the starting point of the new iteration of what Borderlands is going to be in the future. At least that's my opinion. So from Borderlands 1 to Borderlands 3 kind of was its own linear concept with the same characters, same story writing. I think Borderlands 4 is going to veer completely off. Obviously, we know it's continuing the story, but I think it's going to be a baseline for the series to build off of for the future of the series. Now, one of the most interesting things when it comes to the gameplay is the new medic kit and syringe system. It's not like we've seen before where you just get health vials, you pick them up and your character heals. These systems are used for healing and buffs like splash damage, movement speed, debuff systems, as well as debuff systems, and these are activated via the D-pad or specific bindings on the PC. And these are activated by these syringes are activated. They're not passively used. It operates on a cooldown rather than ammo, so you no longer are going to be picking up syringes in order to heal. This is going to be interesting because it's really going to veer towards the side of making sure that you are putting yourself in a position that's going to be situational in combat. You can't just run around. Hopefully you open a chest. Hopefully you kill a guy and he drops a health vial. If you're low on health, you're going to have to push back. You're going to get verticality. You're going to have to go up high, get some altitude, hide a little bit until the syringe system cools down in order for you to pop it to then heal. So it seems like Borderlands 4, in my opinion, the way they're taking the game and they're taking the franchise, I think is a great, great change. I'm super, super excited about what they're doing for Borderlands 4. I loved all the Borderlands titles, but I do think the changes that they're bringing to the table for Borderlands 4 is what I've been looking for in this series for a very, very long time. I'm super excited about it. Unfortunately, I could not make it to this weekend's event. I really, really wanted to. I really wanted to, but previous obligations prevented me from. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys excited for Borderlands 4? I'm super excited about it. I'm ready for launch. Have you guys pre-ordered the title? I sure have. If you guys pre-ordered the title, let me know down in the comments below what you guys are excited for and what you guys are a little bit skeptical for Borderlands 4. I appreciate every single one of you guys. We're so close to 10,000 subscribers. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like on it, as that's the best way you can help me and the channel grow. And as always, stay happy, stay hyped, and good luck looting.